Hello, and welcome to Chapter 2 of Book 2 on The Big Answer, the single biggest answer to life's biggest questions. If you haven't, please start with the video titled Book 1, Intro to the Big Answer, and work through the Book 1 chapters after that before starting on Book 2. In this video, we'll be doing a deeper dive into the concept of order as it applies to the big answer. As mentioned in the last video, the 7 qualities were arrived at by looking at all the ways principles can deteriorate or be destroyed. The first 2 ways I thought of were that they can deteriorate in quality or quantity. The quantity, or the number of principles, I decided to call complexity, which we'll get to in a later video. While the quality, or how closely the principles are followed, I decided to call order. Obviously, these are words that already have meanings, but it was either that or inventing entirely new words, which I didn't feel like doing. So while the head of a religious order could order an orderly to order pizzas, and when they arrive, arrange them in alphabetical order so that they can be served in an orderly manner, we're going to go ahead and add one more definition to that pile. As I mentioned in the last video, we're not going to be overly concerned about whether something is a principle or the feature, characteristic, property, or behavior that the principles give rise to, since if they're breaking down, the underlying principles are likely to be breaking down too. So my examples will consist of both. So, examples of principles deteriorating would include a tornado starting to sputter out, a heart arrhythmia, a car drifting around in its lane, mild dementia, a sprained ankle, a warped basketball, etc. In each case, there are still principles present that are being followed. The tornado is still spinning in a funnel, the heart is still beating, the car is still staying in its lane, the person can still take care of themselves, you can still walk on a sprained ankle if you need to, and the basketball is still somewhat usable. So the principles are present, just not being followed closely. This is deterioration in something's order. Order is objective and describes what is really happening in reality. It's not about following rules. If someone is 15 minutes late for work every day, that's their order. If someone has a different color hair every week, that's their order. If someone gets drunk and fights every Friday night, that's part of their order. Since that principle is being followed, it is therefore orderly, though it may undermine order at a broader scale by disrupting other principles. Further, since the only requirement for order is that principles are being followed, and there can be many principles to choose from, it may be impossible to predict which principle will be followed at any given time, and no pattern may arise. For example, tonight you could call your mom, or go for a walk, or declutter your closet, or watch a movie, or bake muffins, or listen to an audiobook, or go to karaoke, or the gym, or invent a new style of dance, etc. So this definition of order is not nearly as constraining as other definitions. You can have a lot of freedom to pick from a huge range of options, none of which are disorderly. People usually picture the hallmarks of order as being things that are simple, static, uniform, and predictable, and that display patterns. None of these are features of TBA's definition of order. Since principles can change over time, or different principles can be followed at different times, this definition of order allows for constant change, may be completely unpredictable, and may display no pattern at all. To have an objective definition of order, the definition cannot be at all dependent on a mind being able to perceive or understand the order, so can't include concepts such as simple, static, predictable, or following a pattern. Simple is subjective. A mind is needed to perceive that something is unchanging over time, or to predict how things will unfold in the future or spot a pattern. This is why none of these concepts are in TBA's objective definition. Basing TBA's definition of order on things following principles removes this reliance on subjective perception. Something is following principles more or less closely regardless of anyone being aware of it doing so. Of course, this can also explain our subjective perception of order. We like it when we feel we have a handle on how things in our lives work, and when things match our expectations. This is true even when we are wrong in our perception. We still get upset at the thing that didn't go the way we want. And of course, we apply this concept to rules or laws we make up. The more we understand someone, the more orderly they seem. Even when they do something most people wouldn't expect, or break the law, if we know them well, it doesn't seem disorderly to us. Also, different couples could have different rules and expectations in their relationship. A couple living in a row house, wearing matching cardigans, sitting in their customary armchairs, and watching the same TV show they watch every night is something many people will recognize as orderly. However, so is a couple wearing nothing but strips of spandex at Burning Man and drinking beer for breakfast. If one partner in the first couple asked their sweetie if they want to go to Burning Man next year, their partner could find that very disorderly because it's not following the principles of that person or the relationship. However, if one partner at Burning Man said to their sweetie, "Hey, how about getting matching cardigans and buying a row house?" their partner would also see that as being disorderly because it doesn't fit the principles of their partner or their relationship. Hopefully, this is getting the point across that this is a much more free and open definition of order than you may be used to. Our drive to see order in the world around us can lead us to make up principles to explain things we find disturbingly unpredictable. We had a range of explanations for pregnancy, disease, weather, the sun, etc. that gave us a sense of understanding and of having some degree of control over our environment. However, the drive to find that order would have initially arisen from the advantage it gave our ancestors in surviving, knowing what edible plants to eat, where to find them, and when they were ready to harvest, knowing where to find water in a drought, knowing the migration patterns of the animals we hunted, organizing tasks and roles in the group, keeping your gear organized, knowing the pattern and length of the seasons, etc., all offered survival benefits. But like all the other qualities we'll look at, this didn't lead to us evolving knowledge of when, where, and why order was important for our survival, just a general appreciation of it. This led to us appreciating order wherever we saw it, including in jewelry, poetry, music, art, spirituality, etc. What started as something that gave us an objective evolutionary advantage was then used in all kinds of subjective applications that had nothing to do with our survival. In summary, order, for TBA's purposes, just refers to how closely something is following a principle or principles. These principles are what exist objectively in real life, not rules or laws or how we think things should be. Your life or society as a whole can be highly orderly by this definition and still be highly complex, dynamic, changing, patternless, and unpredictable. The principles of your life and relationships and society, etc., can be totally different from others, but as long as everyone is following their own principles, there is order. This definition of order is not nearly as constraining as other definitions. We evolved to appreciate order as a survival mechanism, but now we appreciate it wherever we see it. In the next video, we're going to look at complexity. I'll see you there, and in the meantime, do good smart.